Okay, well, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to need for this project. I've kind of laid these items out, but we're going to look at them one at a time. So the first thing we're going to need is a canvas. I am using an 8 by 10 canvas. I'm going to set it aside. We are also going to need some black gesso. So this is a Finnabair's Art Basic Heavy Black Gesso. You can use really any gesso you have. We're also going to need some gold paint. So this is old gold. For one of the main techniques, we're going to be doing embossing. And so for the embossing, I have my fairy stamp. And for the process itself, we're going to use the embossing powder. So this is Recollections tinsel embossing powder. And of course the clear ink. And if you want, you are welcome to use a stamp block. I'm actually not going to be using this, but you're welcome to. The other thing that I really like is this Arranger Perfect Medium brush. So I'm using this brush for, it also contains clear ink. And so what we're going to do is potentially draw some of the elements in ourselves. So whatever the clear ink does not catch, we're going to use the brush to kind of help us out there. Let's see. Next, I want to show you, so we're going to use a word to put on our project. I have a couple of chipboards here. This one's Believe, this one's Inspire. So I'm going to kind of think about what's going to work best for me and select the best word. We're also going to need a stamp for the moon that we're going to put on our project. So I'm using this Spellbinder stamp set that kind of looks like, this one kind of looks like the moon, and I'm going to see how that's going to work for us. I have some Ideology stars. These are going to be the adornments that I'm going to put on my project, along with some black glitter. And this one has a bunch of different glitter elements, and I'm really liking these black stars that I'm going to use. Okay, we're going to need some wax. I'm going to choose, depending on how this turns out, I'm either going to use this Gold Rush or this Aged Brass. Let's see. I have some fake flowers. So this branch is going to go on a project. And I also have some just flowers like this and some leaves. So I just kind of have stuff available and play around with it when I start working on the project. I'm going to look and see what's going to work best. And finally, I have some Mod Podge. So I have this Extreme Glitter Mod Podge and just regular Mod Podge that we're going to use, and some tacky glue, of course. So these are kind of the main products that you're going to need. In addition to those, you're also going to need some things that are laying around in your craft table, and things that I'm going to use are some paper towels. I always like to have these laying around. I'm also going to need wire cutters, and so my husband gave me this really cool set that has a bunch of different tools, but I'm really just looking for the wire cutters to work with my flowers. And I also have my palette and the trusty baby wipes. Okay, well, these are all the things that we're going to need, so let's go ahead and get started on our project. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to prep our canvas. So when I think about fairies, I think about magic and night and sparkles, and so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my colors, and what I want to do is I want to do black and gold. So those are the colors that I have chosen to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep my canvas by putting some black gesso on it, because black is going to be my my primary color here as we work on our backgrounds. So I am using the Finnabair's Art Basics Heavy Black Gesso. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to prep my canvas by spreading this black gesso all over. And I'm going to also get my sides as well. Because my plan is to work a little bit kind of outside of the canvas with the sides as well. All right. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. I am gonna try to cover up my finger holes. And we're gonna let this completely dry, and I am actually gonna use my heat tool because if you're like me and have no patience for drying, heating tools are pretty amazing. So I have an industrial heating tool. I pretty much took ownership of it from my husband's garage. It's got a lot of tools, and I decided not to buy my own, but just to use his. Okay, so as I look at my canvas, you'll probably see it has a lot of kind of empty, somewhat white spots still. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a second layer of black gesso on just to have a little bit more of a solid black background for me. So I'm just going to put one more layer over my first one, and I think that should be good. And if you notice, I'm using long horizontal strokes. And gesso is going to dry, and it's not really going to be too noticeable, but I like my things a little bit uniform when it comes to stuff like that, so. Okay. I think this should be good. We're going to give it another round of heat tool. Okay. So I think this looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. It's dry. It's ready to go. So here we come to really my favorite part, which is what got me thinking about this project in the first place. So I have this really beautiful fairy stamp, and if you really love this stamp, we actually have it in our shop, so you're welcome to purchase one. As I mentioned in my introduction, fairies are my totems, and so I really wanted to do this project with kind of the fairy as a focal point. And one of my most favorite things or art techniques lately is working with the embossing powder. And so what I'm going to do is work with my fairy and emboss my stamp on this canvas, and then work with creating a scene around her. So if you've never worked with an embossing powder, I am using this Gold Recollections embossing powder. And for that, you're going to also need this clear ink. Whoops, here we go. And of course, your heating tool. So what we're going to do first is we're going to ink our stamp. Now, if you'd like, you can use a stamp block. So I have a clear stamp block with a tack and peel on it, and so I can put my stamp on this and emboss it this way. But I'm actually going to try doing this without it because canvas is a little bit flexible here, and so what I want to do is be able to put my stamp on this canvas when I'm stamping this, and then kind of go over it to make sure that everything, that the ink, the clear ink, sticks, because canvas is going to give here in the middle since it doesn't really have the support. And so when I stamp it, I'm going to be able to kind of use my fingers and flex it a little bit to make sure that the clear ink is sticking to the canvas. Okay, the next step is to use this clear ink, and what we're going to do is we're going to stamp the ink on the stamp. This ink is what's going to hold the embossing powder when we put it on our canvas, and it's going to stick. Okay, this is good. And what I'm doing is I'm just getting a piece of paper because when we put the embossing powder on our canvas, we're going to have to kind of tap it off so that the image is left. And so I'm going to collect my leftover embossing powder on this sheet of paper and then put it back in my container. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready. Okay, so I'm thinking my fairy is going to go somewhere around probably here on the canvas. So I'm going to stamp her. You don't want to press too hard, but you do want to make sure that the ink touches the canvas. And I'm gonna lift it from one side and kind of lift it up. And I don't really know if you can see it or not, but you can see kind of the imprint of the stamp. So next, I'm going to sprinkle the embossing powder over the stamp. And I'm being pretty generous, but it's really not necessary because I'll be able to see if it took. So there she is. All right, we're gonna put our leftover embossing powder back in our container. And we're gonna work with our fairy. So one thing that I noticed right away is the picture kind of has a little bit of a leftover powder that's sticking around. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean it up. So I'm just using a really, really thin paintbrush and kind of pulling off this leftover powder so that when I emboss it, only the things that I really want to keep stick around. And I'm okay with just a little bit here and there, but I just want to clean it up a little bit. And be careful not to touch the pieces that you want to keep because they will go if you, right now as well, because the embossing powder hasn't been set. Okay, so this looks okay for me. So the next step is we're gonna go ahead and emboss it. So I'm using my heating tool and I'm just gonna go over and put it up to the powder. And you're actually going to notice the powder start to kind of cure. So it's going to take shape. So it's going to kind of liquefy, if you will. Make sure you give it enough time so that it really sets. All right, let's look and see. So here she is. She looks really good. Okay, so my plan is kind of create the scene around the fairy. So one thing I'm thinking about is she looks like she's kind of maybe sitting on the flowers, maybe on the tree branch. So we're gonna start creating this scene around her. But one thing I'm kind of thinking about as I look at this is because I'm thinking of a night, I think that I wanna put, I think I wanna create a moon here on the piece as well. And so I have a Seth Epter's stamps that kind of look like the moon. And the great thing about embossing powder is you can use the stamps or you can actually kind of create your own or add things to it using, I have this brush. So this is also a, it has the ink on the end, and so I can basically draw with it. I'm gonna use this stamp And then I'm gonna probably fill in a little bit more to just create a little bit more of a moon shape here. Okay. And I'm thinking I'm probably not going to use the whole stamp, but maybe just kind of some of it. We'll see how this turns out. I can kind of see where the moon is. She's pretty good, but I think I'm gonna draw. I'm just gonna create some. And I can see what I'm doing, so it's pretty helpful. It's a fun technique. Okay. So I think this is pretty good. So we're going to do another round of embossing here. She turned out pretty good. All right. So let's clean her up. Oops. Save my little powder for next time. This is a really great technique, and embossing powders come in a number of colors. So if this is something that you really enjoy, I would encourage you to go into your local craft store and kind of check out and see just how many different embossing powder colors there are. So it's a pretty fun technique to play around with on your projects. All right, let's go ahead and cure our moon so that she sticks. She sticks around with our fairy. Right. Okay, so the next step is I'm thinking about kind of creating this scene, and since our fairy seems to be, she's in the flowers, so I think I'm going to create a branch and put some flowers in to help her travel her way around. So I have this these flowers that I found at a craft store. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use them in my project in creating that tree branch to kind of get her sort of sitting in the tree. So for this, I'm gonna need my wire cutters. And again, my husband gave me this really cool set of tools that I can use. So I have my wire cutters, and I'm gonna use this guy to help me manipulate this branch. Okay. So I'm kind of thinking something like that. So I'm going to cut my flower off its stem. So let's see if I can, let me just move my project. I don't want to disturb my fairy. There we go. Oh, and so as we were working with this, I'm going to use a glue gun to get my flowers onto my project, to my to surround my fairy. So I need to get that going as well. Okay, so I'm going to be using my glue gun. So I've got that ready and it is going. In the meantime, I'm going to play around with my flowers and kind of manipulate them, because I imagine them kind of being here. So I'm using my tools to help me create that that bend in the branch. So I'm thinking I'm going to do something like that. And this branch will come out for me as well. Let's see where we are here. So I think this will be a good way to start. Okay. So let's see if my glue gun is ready to go. Yep. I just want to place it right now. I'm not going to be too concerned with it sticking. So once I get kind of the basic idea where my branch is going to go, then I can work on kind of gluing individual pieces to make sure that it's stable. right now I'm just kind of concerned with creating a little bit of a path, if you will. So. And don't worry about the glue sticking out because we are going to cover it all up. Okay, I'm going to use this little guy. Let's see where we are here. So I kind of want her in these branches. So I'm going to give her some of these flowers. I want her to appear like she's sitting in here. Again, remember that I'm just kind of creating a path right now. I'm not worried about anything else. I'm going to work with my flowers once I get the branches situated where I want them and my fairies looking. She's incorporated into this tree, if you will. Kind of think like I want my flowers to So the great thing about these is that you can manipulate them because they do have wires inside. And there, I think I like it like this. So I can kind of use my my tools to help me manipulate the shape of the branch, etc. So that's kind of what I'm playing with here, trying to figure out kind of to fill in the blanks, if you will, and create these flowers. I'm going to work with, we're going to add more stuff, but to create kind of a baseline. That's where I am. So I'm being a little bit probably too particular about how this is going to fit. And I like the glue gun for this because it holds pretty well and it dries. It sticks pretty quickly. Let's see if I can lift up some of these flowers. Leave the branch behind. There we go. All right. I think this is a pretty good start. So the next thing is I do want to add a little bit more flowers to my scene. So I have a variety of different Prima Marketing flowers that I can kind of, I think I'm going to place throughout. I have some recollections here. So this is the next fun part, is kind of playing with it. I also have some paper flower leaves that I want to incorporate in as well. So I'm going to kind of go ahead and get them out and see what looks good. Let's see. See what sticks to us. So, first things first, I'm not too keen on this branch sticking out, so I'm going to cover it. I think I like these roses. Let's see if I can get some leaves in here. I'm just playing. I'm just kind of creating some, filling in the blanks and creating a little bit of a different scene in here, so there's a little bit of interest and variety in our presentation. Here that I like. I think this rose will fit nicely in here. All right. So I think this looks pretty good. I'm gonna let this dry. And then we're gonna keep going with our decorations. Okay, so I think I'm ready for the next step. You'll probably notice that there's a lot of kind of empty space around here, and I'm leaving this, I've left it here for a reason. My plan is to kind of fill this in. As I look at my project, I'm thinking, okay, we've got the moon, we've got the dark night, so I think we're missing some stars. So I have these Tim Holtz embellishments that I think I'm going to add to my project. I'm going to place it in here. And then I'm also feeling like I'm going to probably use a word that speaks to me and to this art piece. And so I'm thinking that I'm inspired, and so I have this inspire word that I'm thinking probably gonna go here. So keeping that in mind, I'm gonna leave this open, but the rest I'm kind of gonna play with my stars, just kind of see. Maybe something like that. I think that's good. So I am going to go ahead and get my stars on this canvas. think that looks pretty good. I think I'm ready for the next step, which is probably going to be the most boring part of this lesson. And that is, I am going to paint. I'm actually going to cover all my flowers and I'm going to turn them black. I want the focus of my project to be on the fairy. And as if you can see right now, the colors are super distracting. And so my next step is to literally take my black gesso and color all the flowers, my tree branch that I've created, and the stars, and make them black. So I'll go ahead and get started. I'll probably do a fast forward through that part so that you don't have to sit and watch me do this, because it's going to take me a little while. But let's go ahead and get started. And one thing I do want to mention is I don't want to accidentally paint my fairy. So I'm going to put a piece of paper over her so that she doesn't accidentally get covered with my gesso. Okay, so we are completely done with painting. I am completely done. So you'll see it's all black as I had hoped it would be. And my next step is to, I want to paint those stars as well because I want them to be black. Right now they're a little bit silver, as you can see. So I'm just going to use my black gesso and paint my stars as well. All right. So this is looking good. And the next thing I would like to do is I'm thinking I'm going to add some glitter to my flowers. So I have some black glitter and I have these stars. These are recollections as well. So I think I'm going to give them a try as well. And I'm just going to kind of place some Mod Podge around in these different spots and then put some glitter on and kind of see where it takes us. Okay, I'm going to bring my trusty paper in here. not really being too particular about where it's going. I'm just kind of thinking like, okay, we need a little glitter here and there. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. Just to add a little sparkle. Create a little bit of interest. We'll see. So the great thing about Mod Podge is that it's going to dry clear. So we're not going to see any of those white spots, but it'll give our picture a little bit of a foundation, or a little bit of that sparkle. Just a little bit of fun. Oops. See, kind of gives it a little bit of a shine. Nothing too crazy, but also just adds a little bit of interest to the piece. There. All right, I like it. Okay, so the other thing that I want to do as I'm kind of looking at my flowers is I feel like they're just a little bit flat. And so I want to play a little bit with this other product that's really fun, and that is this Mod Podge Extreme Glitter. So it's just like glue, but when it dries, it leaves this really cool shine, glitter shine on the flowers. So I kind of want to give it a little bit of the look as if it's got some maybe glitter or kind of hidden sparkle on. So really all I'm going to do is just come in and paint a few pieces here and there to give it that shine, to give it that sparkle. I think I'm gonna actually glue this flower and get my glue gun back on. So I think I wanted to be a little bit flat here. So, you know, I'm not doing anything super fancy. I'm just kind of going in and giving some of the petals a little bit of a shine to pop them up a little bit. So it's kind of my intention here. Maybe a little bit on the ends of these flowers. Let's see. Okay, so I'll get my heating tool and let it dry a little bit. So some of these pieces have a little bit more Mod Podge on it, so I'm gonna let it dry. And in the meantime, I'm gonna work on my word. So if you remember, I mentioned that I wanted to put this word on here. So I want to paint it so that my word is ready to go. So I'm gonna use my gold paint. I really just need a dollop here. And I think I'm going to use this brush. I really like this this brush because it's really short. So it's a little bit of it has a little bit of a resistance when you paint. So it's easier to, I don't know, I like working with this brush a lot. Oops, took too much. I don't want to take too much paint because I don't want it to glob up inside the letters. You can use a foam, like a makeup remover. You know, they have these foam wedges. Those are fun to work with for this kind of stuff, but I'm really digging working with my paintbrush because I think I mentioned earlier in the video, it's just, there's just something about kind of working on the same thing, maybe like paying attention to like the tiny little pieces and such, but it's just calming to me. It gives me a chance to kind of reflect and just think about it and really focus on this particular move or whatever it is that I'm doing and not really think about much else. It kind of gives me a chance to practice some mindfulness. That's the one thing about art that is really fantastic and really, really great, is that when you're feeling stressed, when you're frustrated, when you're feeling, you know, whatever, when you sit down and work and create, it just seems to take that stress and that frustration or whatever it is that you're feeling away. Somehow those things just kind of disappear, or maybe not as important, become not as important anymore. It's a nice way to decompress. Okay. I think this is ready. There we go. I'm just cleaning up some of the paint that kind of spilled over from the letter. There we go. And we'll set that aside and we'll come back to that. Okay, let's bring our project back. Here we go. I want to work with this flower. It's being a little difficult, so I'm gonna try to fix it by few strays here. Just trying to settle. And my Mod Podge is still drying, so I still need a little bit of time there. Let's see. Just being a little bit particular about some of these petals that are still showing color because I want them to be black. There we go. There we go. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I was thinking about, you know, we're working with this totem, we're working with this fairy, and she's kind of flying and peeking through the leaves. I feel like I need a little bit of maybe another little totem in here. So I have this dragonfly. And as you know, here at Mystic Spring Studios, we love our dragonflies. It is our totem animal here. And so I'm thinking I am going to hide her somewhere here as well. I just feel like she could use a little attention here too. So I am going to, I think I'm going to paint her. I think I'm going to color her with my black gesso, and then I have an idea for kind of spicing up our stars. So I'm going to paint her. I'm actually going to use my favorite brush. I'm just going to paint her black. And then I am going to use some of my wax to bring up the stars and to bring her out a little bit. So that's another technique I'm going to show you that you may or may not know. So I think I'm gonna hide her in here. Okay, so I'm looking for my wax. I think I'm gonna use, this one is, so this is Art Alchemy wax, and this is the Deco Art. So this one is gold and this one is aged brass, so I'm kind of gonna see, I think this one might be a little bit darker. Let's see. I'm gonna use this gold. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm just gonna put a little bit of it on my finger, literally just a touch. And I'm gonna give my stars, see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. I'm gonna give my stars a little bit of a shine. So I'm barely touching the stars, but the wax is kind of bringing them up. It's popping them up from black. And I'm just rubbing them. So let me show you. I just put a little dab on my finger, and then I just rub my star. And it pops it out just a tad. Not too much. I don't want them to be gold. Oops. My little white. There we go. I just want them to have a little bit of a pop from the background. So I'm going to keep working on my stars. You don't need a lot, you just need to kind of touch it. Just put a little layer on your finger, and it will do the rest. There we go. Let me zoom out. Kind of brings the stars up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so, oh, yeah. So I forgot, I was gonna do this on I was gonna work on my dragonfly. I'm just gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna give her some gold. I'm not, if you can see it, I'm not really painting, I'm not covering her completely flat gold. I'm just giving her a little bit of gold here and there so that she's got a little bit of a dimension and interest. And now I am going to add her to our project. So let's see where I'm gonna put her. I think she's probably gonna hang out over here. I think I like her over there. All right, so I think it's time. I think our wort is dry. So we're going to add that as well. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our wort on our project, and I put some Aleene's tacky glue on the back. I just use my finger to do this, and I'm going to put it on and I'm going to let it sit and dry. Kind of let it dry up a little bit. This is looking really fun. I still feel like there's a little bit of flatness here, so I think maybe we need to add some of my stars. So let's just kind of see what they look like. So I think that maybe they'll add some background here. And I'm just sprinkling because I'm not really sure if I want this yet, so I'm just gonna look and see. I think I like these stars just kind of spread out. I feel like gives this piece a little sparkle. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a toothpick. I think it's going to be easier for me to pick these up. I'm going to pick them up and then put a little bit of glue underneath it. It's going to be very tedious, but it's going to help me keep my stars where I want them and give this art piece a little bit of a shine. So let's do this. And now we've got some shine here. Okay, let's see how many stars we're gonna, I know I didn't glue all of them. So there we go. I like it. It shines, it sparkles. Let's see. I think I see a few more spots to add some of these stars. Here we go. And she's ready, I think. Voila. Well, I hope you enjoy making this project with me. I look forward to seeing what you create. Use the embossing powders and the wax and the sparkle and the shine. Think about how you might use two colors in helping you create a project that speaks to you and that shows your creativity and your passion. And I look forward to engaging with you in our Facebook group and seeing what you create.